Looks good. I like it.
Let's give you a little insight into kind of how I get started on something. So I've got kind of this pile I've got laying on the floor. You probably won't be able to see this real well, but I'm working on putting together some kind of a lamp that kind of looks like a drooping sunflower. It's kind of hard to see. The lens is yellow. It's this fog lens. And this was a sealed beam light that I cut the back off with a diamond glass cutter. So I went and bought, and it's not perfect, but that's why I wrapped it with the copper foil. This is copper foil tape. Use it in stained glass. And you can actually flux this around it and then solder it, and it won't ever come off, because once it's like a heat activated tape, but it's pretty sticky stuff. I don't expect it to ever come off, but let me see if I can not drop this. So that will kind of hang down, kind of like it's facing, drooping down. And then the bicycle light, this came from my buddy Brian. Thanks, man. So I cut it apart, and it's in pretty rough shape, but it's kind of like the flower petal is exploding out of the backside. And then what I'm gonna do is back it with copper. I've lost my little piece I hammered out for this. Oh, there it is. So I'll show you. Let me get that set up. I've just kind of backed it with just a little piece of copper that I've hammered to the shape. And I'm planning to kind of do the same thing with this and kind of peel that back. Make sure there's no sharp edges, but kind of peel it back so that it's kind of getting ready to flower out, is kind of my thinking. And the lens that was in this originally, I wish I could use it because it was more of a domed, it looked more like a bud. The problem was it was really kind of milky and just gnarly, and it couldn't be used. So I changed it out for another one I had. I don't like it as well. I wish I could find something that was more domed. That would work better. But we got a shut-off, like on a big industrial factory, like a water shut-off. The petals or the leaves are the floor joist braces that go like in a basement. We redid all of ours and put wood instead of the metal. And so I kept them all, of course. And then I'll just kind of build this up to kind of hide all of this here. And everything's just tacked. I have nothing permanently welded. Anything can be ripped off at any point. And this is kind of how I built that little tricycle. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link up here and you can go check it out. But I just kind of start with what I think I'm going to work with, and then just build out from there. And I just tack everything. And then I go back and take it all off and put it back where it was. I'll have to build a lamp, some kind of a lamp housing hookup inside here. So I'll have to weld a washer or something in here to hold my lamp housing, because I can't use the back side of the lamp itself. So I'll have to build something on a beam, a non-sealed beam. I don't know if you can see in there or not. I could just ram that lamp housing directly into it. But this one was a sealed beam, and I wanted to use it because it's a yellow lens and it's really big. I don't know how I'm going to incorporate all of this stuff. I haven't really come up with a plan yet, but we'll do something like those leaves are down there, and we'll just keep working it up until we have filled it in. Hopefully turn it into something kind of cool. I took that light that I had, the bicycle light that was on the side there, I took it off because I had it mounted. I'll be able to show both of these. I had it mounted kind of like that, and that was kind of throwing the whole thing off. Disregard everything here because everything kind of fell. I bumped one of them and it came crashing down. So until we get that all welded up, that's not where any of that is going. But as far as the relationship to the big light, you can see the little weld right there is where I was before, and I was straight off like that. I decided that to fix it, that guy needed to go up like that. So it had the bracket, like the bicycle bracket on there. And I think if I pop that way, that fixes everything and kind of throws it all back into alignment. Of course, I got to start at the bottom and build our way back up again, because, yeah, that's a disaster down there. I have to use clamps and things like that, because you kind of have to get an eye for how it looks before you tack weld them into place. And I have just taken a piece of round bar and just cut it to approximate length and kind of bent it just a hair so that we can kind of mimic, you can't see nothing, so we can kind of mimic that back main piece. This is 1/2 inch on the main light, and this is I don't know what that is, 3/8. So yeah, that should work. Let me tack that up so you can maybe, hopefully, see what I'm talking about. If I had a better space for us to view it, I would put it in a better space, but for right now, this is what we've got. So you have to ignore my welding table that's behind there and be able to see it, which makes it kind of hard. It's too much stuff in this little shop. So, weld it up. Well, I'm making an absolute mess of my shop, but I think we are making some progress, and I apologize, it's not real easy to capture that. Let me go on this side, maybe see it a little bit better. So I'm just building up the foliage on the bottom, and I have this now welded on there. I've got the little skip tooth sprocket. It's just one of these guys, tack welded to that, and then I've just coiled a spring. I'll probably shove that up a little bit further, kind of like I did on this one. And I may even add some more stuff down in there. But we're getting there. I just need to keep building up this section down here, and that's adding some real nice weight to the base of this lamp. So it's getting some meat to it now. So I'm just going to keep adding and tacking things in. Apologize for the lawnmower in the background. But I think it's coming along. I think it's going to look really, really good once we get it all together. And you know, we still have some slop, so when I move that, we still got a little bit of slop. But what I plan to do is to actually start marrying in down low, and then that really gives it some strength. I've built things like this in the past, so I kind of know what to do and not to do on strength, because they're a pain to transport if you don't do it right. So I'll do something like this. I have this wrench here, and what I'll do is put it in right there. I'm being paged. I'll be right back. That's better. I tend to get a little sloppy when I'm working on a project. And I'm sloppy anyway, and being in the middle of something doesn't help. So I was thinking about adding in just a couple of these into the bottom down there. I think I have a few more, laid a few more down here. Yeah, here's one. Maybe these two little ones here. Just as some kind of grass design. That's probably too high. Those are probably too high. Make those a little bit lower. Yeah, I like those in there. Let's tack those. Let me tack those up and see what we think. I'm all the time keeping little pieces of stuff kicking around. This little section, little short piece of just steel I had kicking around, I just added to one of those drill bits so that I could give it a little height, so that they're not exactly the same height, because it's all about kind of the variation. So I'm thinking that probably about right there. Let me step back so I can show you. Or not. I'm thinking that probably about right there is going to balance that out pretty well. And then just add a few leaves to it. Well, I soldered that in there, and I don't like it. It looks, obviously it will clean up, but it makes the jagged edge go away because the tape kind of makes it an even looking edge. And on this one, I just epoxied it. And I hate epoxying something on a welded piece, but this is the look I'm going for. I really like the way that turned out. Just keeping that harsh edge on there. And it won't pick because I put epoxy all the way to the corners. I like this a lot better than this. And the black and everything would clean up. But I just don't like, whoa, almost bit it right there. I just don't like the edge, how that foil tape kind of cleans the edge up. I don't like that look at all. So we're gonna heat that up. One of the things on this channel that I don't ever want to do is try to do everything perfect. So when it messes up, you'll get to see it. What's up, Maggie? And this is a mess up, in my opinion. So let me get this off of here. We'll get this in the process of being epoxied, and then we can work on the rest of the lamp, kind of getting everything put together, figuring out. And I'll go ahead and epoxy a couple pieces down here too on these big gaping wounds. You probably aren't going to be able to see much, but we're going to try and give you the best view possible anyway. Yeah, that looks, I like that better. Just show you what I'm saying here. The harshness of that is kind of what I was going for. And I'll have to actually kind of maybe take a wire wheel right there and harshen that back up, because it's kind of smoothed itself out. But I really like that. Anyway, bring you back here in a second. It's kind of starting to come together finally. I welded this up a little better, so now I can smooth that down. It'll look more like the stem of a flower coming up rather than a nut. And I will probably take off the corners all the way around so it's just a smooth piece coming up. And then I made this piece here, which is going to be my lock nut. So basically the light will thread into this, and I wanted the lamp to be able to pivot. Here, I'll just show you. So I basically wanted the lamp head to be able to pivot a little bit either way. And I obviously don't want this to fall off. So it's only threaded in, you know, whatever the thickness of that nut is. I don't know, maybe 5-6 threads. So I made this little piece, that little washer setup, so that it can be locked into that position. So you'll just turn that, and that has essentially it's a double nut because it has this one on top, but I wanted it to be bigger so you didn't have to have a wrench to turn it. So now I can just tighten this down against where the position is on it, and that locks it into place so that it now can't move back and forth. I just think that's the only way I could probably do that and still make it movable. And then the spring will get welded, tacked up like that. And I probably need to work on working on hammering that out a little more. It's kind of banged up a little bit where I've just kind of bent it to figure out where it kind of needs to be. Well, this is kind of what I've come up with for a finished product. I added a couple of random springs. There's one under here. And then the copper wire I incorporated in just to kind of hold the lamp cord behind there and add a little color. I will say it is much better in person because you can really see the colors that you can't see in video. Kept a couple drill bits out and put those in. This one I actually left a bit of it. I left the square tip, can't see it very well, in there so you can still see that it was a drill bit that went in one of those hand drills. And then here's the back of it. Again, it's much, much better in real life. But let me turn it on. I think it's probably going to glare us, but I'll turn it on so you can see what it looks like lit. And I'm thinking I probably need to kind of yellow lens that guy, although the white or clear lens doesn't really bother me. Let's plug it in and see what it looks like. So here it is, kind of in the dining room. And I'm not sure this is the best place for it, but it's a spot that I had that was available. So that's where it's going to go for now. Just do a little bit of a close-up run through of it. Ended up putting some springs, little springs up here just to add some interest. There's a drill bit there, and then there's one down here. The chain is from like a machine. I bought it at an auction where a guy had ran a sawmill. I did the little copper ties for the wire tie backs. A couple of them need to be tightened up, but real happy with how this turned out. The copper. This copper right here. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. LED lighting so it doesn't get hot. Looks good. I like it. Did oil this guy up too before I ended up taking him into the show. And I ended up going with just a C-clamp on the ends of those. And that seems to have worked pretty well. The other side I put just a notch for the spring to sit in. So that's what ended up holding that. If you haven't seen the video on this build, I'll put a link right here and you can go check it out. Focus. There we go. But I do think the oil really helped bring out the colors in it better than it was before. So it was a pretty, it did take a tumble at the show. So the reason it's out here again is because this little piece here got caught on someone's purse, and where I had it sitting was not the best. So we lost that piece, and then it took a second fall at the show, and this came loose. So I have to re-weld that. But if that's the only two things that broke, and it took a pretty good tumble onto a hard floor, I'm okay with that.